Hello and welcome to today's video. So in today's video I'm going to talk you through the application process for PIP. PIP stands for Personal Independence Payment, and you can claim it if you struggle with any sort of disabilities, whether that be physical health or mental health. So I thought I'd speak through the process, how to fill out the forms and how to get the best chance of getting it. I applied before I was in hospital and I scored 0. Then when I was in hospital I reapplied and I got awarded it when ironically I was exactly the same, and what I wrote down was I felt was exactly the same, but I did have someone help me this time, so I think it's the way you word it helps as well. So I'm going to go through what you need to do, or well, to give you the best chance of getting it. Obviously you'll need the right evidence and support. This isn't going to guarantee that you'll get awarded it, but I thought it would be helpful to do anyway, so yeah. So first of all, you need to write or ring the PIP new claim line and say that you want to claim PIP or you want to apply for PIP. I hate phone calls, so I took the long option and wrote a letter. So I'll read out what details they want on it. So you need to write your phone number, your date of birth, your national insurance number, a bank account that you'll want it being paid into if you get it, your doctor or GP name, dates and addresses for any time you spent in a care home or hospital, and dates for any times you spent abroad for more than 4 weeks at a time, and the countries you visited. So I think that's in your entire life, because it's all linked up through the government, so they can find everything out about you anyway. So yeah, you ring or actually I've rang PIP twice now and I've had to wait 40 minutes, and I've read that's actually quite a good waiting time. So be prepared to be sitting on the phone for hours. But yeah, so you need to write to them or phone them up to say you want to start a claim. Send that in and then you'll get sent a document, and the document is a How My Disability Affects Me form. So I'm going to talk through each section on that form and how you should best fill it out. Well, in my opinion, how's the best way that I was told to fill it out, which I think definitely helped in why I got awarded it the second time, not the first time. So the PIP application process, I'd say in general, probably takes up to a year. Like from when you start it and like ring them or send a letter and saying I want to start this claim, that is when your claim starts. So if it's like 9 months later, so the other thing, they're very slow, but when you get the form they don't give you very long. I think you get like 3 or 4 weeks, and then if you don't send it back within that time, then you then the claim's ended, like it's like you've don't want it anymore. But if you eventually get awarded it, you do get back paid to when you started your claim. My issue was, because when I applied I was in hospital, if you're in hospital for more than 28 days, you then lose your PIP. So because I hadn't been out of I was in hospital at the time and had been for like over a month, I was not entitled to a payback at all. Yeah, so that's just something to consider, that if you're in hospital for more than 28 days, you will lose your PIP, or you will not actually be allocated it until you're out. So I think my PIP finishes in like 2026, so, but I won't get any of it unless I'm at home or spend overnights at home, which are known as like border days. So because I'm in hospital, if I go on home leave and have overnight home leave, I can give those dates to PIP, and then they will then pay me for those nights that I spent at home, those nights and days. Because like the time I'm outside of hospital, I have to be on overnights, but then I'm obviously there for the days and the nights, so I do get paid for the like few days that I do get at home. So that's always like a nice little bonus for like being like well and safe enough to go on home leave. So yeah, so you will get a How Your Disability Affects You form. So in this you need to fill out your health conditions and when you were diagnosed with them and who diagnosed you. You also need to make a list of any medications you're taking, the dose and why you're taking them. These are like little tables and questions that you can fill out. And then you also need to list any treatments, therapies or operations that you've had. So this is what you're currently receiving, what you've received in the past, why you've received it, who provided it, and then you need to provide like, it's a bit like a reference in a job, but you need to provide like medical references. So say that's like a therapist or a consultant or a doctor or anything. You need to write their information down and their numbers and how Pip can contact them, because they will contact them to get more information about you. So there are two elements to the Pip payment, and that's the daily living component and the mobility payment. So these questions that I'm about to read out are based on the daily life component. So you can either get you get scored points, and I think you scored 4 points per question. For the mobility part, there's like 3 questions, I think, and so I think the cut-off is 8 points for the standard pay, or there's the enhanced payment, which you have to hit 12 points for, I think, overall. These are the questions for the daily living component of Pip. So for each of the questions, you are asked whether this affects you or not. Don't worry if you don't need to tick all the boxes for every area. Like, say you don't struggle with cooking food or stuff to do with food, then that's fine. Like, don't worry that you're not going to get it, because it's how your disability affects you. It's unique for everybody. So the first question is preparing and cooking food. So you get the do you tick it or do you cross it? If you cross it, you just move on to the next question. So the best way to fill out your form is actually how they give an example, and follow that format, literally stick to it. So you need how often this issue affects you, what the issue is, how it makes you feel, and how that links to your diagnosis or your issues. So for cooking and preparing food, it will say like what kind of food you eat. Can you cook a ready meal? Like, can you make a basic dish? And you need to write about your worst day and what that's like. So I have an eating disorder, so that's a very difficult task for me. So you write how often it generally affects you. So they say like you use a time period of like a week. So like, is it a couple times a week? For me, it's a lot of the time, and it's quite a massive barrier, really. But yeah, so you write how often this thing affects you, how it affects you, and how that links to your diagnoses, and what do you need to happen in order for you to be able to do that. Do you need someone to chop up food for you? Like, what do you need to allow you to do that successfully? So if you follow that kind of structure throughout the whole document, then that's the best way to kind of clearly show what you struggle with, how it affects you, what you are capable of doing, and what you need to be able to do that at a level that is reasonable for survival. So the first question is about preparing and cooking food. The next one is eating and drinking. So I think a question asks you like if you have a feeding tube or stuff like that, like if you have any physical needs that represent that area. The next question is managing treatments. So I think this is linked to taking medication, attending therapy. You say to attend therapy, how would you get to therapy? You need to explain any difficulties that you have, and again, what you need in order for this to work. Like, what help and support do you need that will help you like be able to do that. The next question is about washing and bathing. So I think more about like the physical nurse, like if you're sensitive to like hot water or something, then that might be something to think of. So think about every like element of having to do that task. So like running the bath, getting in the bath, getting out the bath, like everything that you'd need. Think about, am I affected in any way by my disabilities? Like, do I struggle with this? The next question is about managing toilet needs. The next question after that is about dressing and undressing. So an example that I put in is I'm really bad at being able to judge and gauge what to wear. So for an example, if it's really windy, I'll be like, do I need to put a coat on? Like, I can't make that decision myself. I have to ask other people for me. So in a way, might not always be physical. It might just be the way your brain works. Like, obviously I'm autistic, so obviously, I don't know if it's obvious, but yeah, I'm autistic, so I'm not very good at gauging like weather. Like, I'm very like not confident in my ability to like what I wear, what the temperature is, like keeping up with hygiene and stuff like that. So it's just about writing like what you're like on a day-to-day basis. So it's not always the physical element. There's different ways of thinking about each task. Like, the question isn't as basic as like you think it is. Like, think about every single element related to that action. The next part is communication. So here, a lot of this is to do with my autism, and how I communicate and how I read other people's communication, and how that can get me in like different situations. So like, if I misinterpret what someone said, or it's just kind of on a general level, what difficulties do I have that other people without my disability do not have. They also have a part on reading, and it's not just whether you can read, it's about, can you retain that information, how can you use that information. And you'll notice that I'm looking at this because I'm reading it off my computer, by the way. The next question is mixing with other people, so socialising. Do you get anxious? Like, I literally have no social life. I do not go anywhere on my own. I struggle a lot with meeting new people, getting to know them and doing things. Like, I literally have zero social life, and even when I was at uni, I had like no social life. Like, I struggled a lot socialising, and it was always something that's really been difficult for me. So yeah, I'd say just think about every domain, like think through what a normal person's experience would be of this, and think how your experiences is different, and write about that. But write it with like how often it happens, how it affects you, how that links to your disability with a diagnosis, and what help you need, or what has to happen for you to be able to do that. The final question on the like general, what's it called? The first part is making decisions with money. So are you able to, like, do you go on impulsive like spend loads of money? Like, do you struggle with gambling? Are you any good at like budgeting and paying your rent on time? Like, how do you manage money? And if anybody, does anyone help you with that? And if they do, how do they help you? What do they do that helps you manage that? The second part is the mobility payment, and this is about how you get around. So the first question is going out. Like, how far, I think one of them is like, how far can you walk? And you have to tick like more than 100 metres, more than 250 metres. And then you have to describe any struggles you have with that. So there's only two parts to the mobility payment. It is going out, and the next part is moving around. Now, I literally cannot go anywhere new without spending a very long time researching it, clicking through Google Maps, Street Maps, to literally know the exact way to get to the route. Like, it actually takes up so much of my time. Or I'm always like anxiously like, oh, how do I get to these places? So I have a lot, like, I struggle a lot with going places, especially on my own. It happens probably like once every 3 months. Like, I rarely go anywhere on my own. I definitely don't nowadays anyway at all. Think about physically and then psychologically. I think that's quite a good way to narrow it down. And like, my eating disorder does not affect my ability to move around. Okay, it actually sort of does sometimes. But say my eating disorder doesn't affect me making decisions about money. So it's not about trying to make everything fit. It's about thinking, what do I actually struggle with that maybe I've overlooked? Maybe you've overlooked it for years and you'd say, oh, I don't actually struggle. But then when you see these categories, you might think, actually, I do struggle, but you've just not realised it. So they say write it down like it's your worst day. What do you struggle with? Like, is it that you're too depressed to get out of bed, you've not got that motivation or ability to be able to do that? Like, think through every scenario and how you could be possibly affected by your illnesses. Then you've got the space for any additional information, and I think they ask you for also some evidence. So these can be like care plans, letters from people. I think we went through quite a few of my discharge summaries and letters and care plans and provided a lot of evidence from that. Obviously, I was on a ward at the time, so they actually emailed like the nurses on the ward and asked them a load of questions and gave them a load of forms to fill out. So you'll send that back in. You only have 3 or 4 weeks to do it, so it's pretty tight. And then you'll be waiting a long time. Don't ring them and chase it up. I wouldn't, because they're getting to you. It just takes them a while because they've got a lot of people to deal with. Another issue is the assessment. So I did have the assessment over the phone when I was out of hospital, and they sort of ask you questions, but I'd take a photocopy or take photos of what you wrote on that document and refer back to that in any questions that they ask you. I remember them being a bit awkward, I think, about like the way they asked things. I felt like they were kind of trying to trip me up on stuff. But yeah, I had my dad next to me anyway, but we were on the phone, so yeah, I remember getting my report and just thinking, right, okay, I didn't actually say that, or they kind of minimised some of my struggles, I thought. But yeah, for the assessment, if it's in person or over the phone or on Zoom or Teams, I'd say just keep a record of what you've already said, refer back to it if you need to, and kind of just get your point across. I don't know how they train them, but sometimes people say they kind of feel like they're trying to not award it you. It's quite weird. It's very stressful, because for someone who needs the support, it's like they get commission off making you feel like, it's like they get commission off making out that you're fine, and I don't think a healthcare system or a government scheme should run like that. I know people that I definitely think should be eligible for PIP and just haven't hit the right scores, and I think most of the time it's down to the assessment and the assessor and who you get. But yeah, the assessment's a bit of a tricky one. I don't really remember mine. It was quite a few years ago now. But yeah, I'd say just stick to your point. Don't let them twist what you're trying to say, because they might repeat it back to you and you'll think they'll change it a bit. Just be very adamant about what you've said. You can also appeal it, and sometimes it takes appealing it and taking it to the courts or whatever. There's a certain system it goes through, so you can appeal the decision. Yeah, I think actually that might be a good idea, because if it's a phone call, I think it'll be recorded, so then they've got that evidence of what you've said and how maybe they've twisted it and wrote it differently, and they're feeding the feedback for you. So for the second time, because they'd got so much evidence, I didn't need an assessment. They were like, we've actually made a decision already, and then I had to wait a long time to get it, and then obviously I didn't get any back payment. But if you do score enough points for it, then great, you'll get that financial support. But the idea is that you can also, the financial support is kind of how I would use mine. I'd use it to fund private therapy that I couldn't get. So I'd use it to help me with my disability, because people are like, oh, it's money, and I'm like, yeah, but that's because we need more money to be able to function or to be able to be better and be well. It's not like, oh, you're just raking in the cash for being there. People think, oh, you're on benefits, then you're just getting money, but actually it's how you use that money and how you need to use that money. So you might get too anxious going on public transport, so you always need to use your car. That's going to mean you're spending more money on petrol, so then you need that money. It's about how that money works for your disability. It's not like you're sat there raking it in. You need that money to be able to function and be able to act how everyone else acts, and to be able to deal with all those issues that you pointed out in your report. Money will help with that. Whether that's getting hiring a support worker to do these things with you, that is kind of how is for you to use your money. That's definitely how I would use it when I'm out. Like, that would be a way of using that money to help me function and have a better time out and about in life and society. For the mobility payment, if you get the enhanced mobility, you are so there's a Motability scheme, which means that you can essentially not get your PIP mobility payment, but you will be able to like get a car for like free. It depends what type of car you get, but you given your mobility payment, and that pays for a car for you, and it's actually a really good scheme. So definitely look into that if you're someone who like needs that car for that independence. Your mobility payment will pay through the Motability scheme for you to have literally a brand new car. So it's a really good scheme. It's definitely one to look into if you do get the higher payment, and like what adjustments you might need and everything, because I think if you're on the higher thing, I don't think you pay road tax yet. I paid for you, I think. I mean, I can't drive at the moment anyway, so I definitely look into like what not perks, but like what you can get out of being awarded PIP. So I have a Nimbus card, which means that they've assessed my needs. It's like a disability card, and it means you can avoid queuing in some places, because queuing can get quite intense. So my PIP has allowed me to get a Nimbus card, and it's provided evidence that has meant that I need these like things put in place. So when you get your PIP, if you do get your PIP, look at like ways of what are you then now entitled to. I'd be aware also like you're not entitled, some things that you think you're entitled to because you get PIP, you're actually not. I don't think you get free prescriptions. I think you still have to pay even if you get PIP. So PIP in some ways is really helpful, but in other ways it's also like you don't get everything that you think you would. So yeah, so I'd say when you get it, or if you don't get it and you feel like you should, definitely appeal it. Like, I've heard of many stories of people appealing it high up and then getting the money like backdated a long way. But yeah, the PIP process takes a long time. But yeah, I'd say it is quite stressful, and sometimes even the stress is enough to put people off applying for it. But if you need help, there are websites out there or people that you can speak to that can help you fill out the forms, because it is a very big task, and the booklet's like 40 pages, and it's very overwhelming when they only give you 3 weeks from when you receive it to actually send it back. So yeah, so I hope this video was helpful. And if it was, then give it a thumbs up. Or if you've got any questions in the comments, I'll try and answer it as best as I can. But yeah, I'd just say be prepared. It's a long process. And then, yeah, just good luck, because it is really a tricky one. Like, I have people that I know should definitely get it and they don't, and I'm like, what? Like, the system just sometimes doesn't make sense. I'm just lucky that I've got it. I've got it till 2026, and then you have what's called a review. So then they start it literally a year before, because that's how long everything takes. But yeah, so while I've not been able to claim, well, I've basically barely claimed any of my PIP because I've been in hospital, it is nice to know that when I get out I will have the extra support. So yeah. If you want to appeal, I'd say definitely Google like PIP help filling out the forms, because there is a lot of help on the internet. It is just difficult, and it is a stressful time, because it's like they're trying to trip you up, and it shouldn't be like that, but that's kind of how the process feels. I don't know what's happened to my voice, but yeah, that's kind of how the process feels. So it's quite a long, drawn out process. And even just filling out the forms can feel really daunting, but yeah, get some help with it if you need to. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next video. Bye.